Okay. Now that Inkvent is over, I want to take a moment to look back at the past couple weeks while we have some sped up swatching of both this year's inks and 2019's. I may even show some of my calendar doodles afterwards. So let's talk. If you haven't watched the entire series of videos that I did, first off, I don't blame you. But second off, I really did like the overall lineup. You're gonna think in a couple minutes that I didn't, just because of how long I'm gonna talk about the flaws, but it's not true. I thought it was a beautiful range of colors, and there weren't really any that I immediately hated, so it was already an improvement over 2021. A few days of writing with Fortune's Gold did have it looking a bit sickly to me, and Buck's Fizz flirts with almost being too fluorescent for me to really enjoy it, but that's kind of it. At least for the inks individually. And there were some real stunners in there, like Fireside Snug, and Moonbeam, and Bah Humbug, and Astral, and I can keep going. I'm really excited about Weeping Willow, which shows off an ink quality that, in my opinion, Diamine has been sneaking under the radar for a couple years now, and it is so cool to have a polychromatic shader that is just impossible to ignore. It's a real vindication moment, you know? I'm also really happy with the range of purples that came in this purple edition Inkvent calendar, and no, I will not be getting over the fact that Tranquility matches the color of the box. Like, exactly matches the color of the box. All of that said, I think there were way too many shimmers this year. In 2019, there were 3 categories: shimmer, sheen, and standard. And are you ready for some truly horrific looking pie charts? 28% of those inks were shimmers. That's within 1 or 2 of exactly a third of the 2019 inks. Since 2019, the number of shimmers has increased by roughly approximately exactly 3 per year. 2021 had 40% shimmer inks, which is again within 1 or 2 days of a third of the calendar, but still was an increase of 3 inks. Standards also had 1 more in 2021, so at this point, sheen inks were getting a little cut out of the pie. Put a pin in that one. We'll talk about that in a sec. The total number of shimmers or chameleons increased by 3 in 2022 as well, and then yet again by 3 in 2023 with the inclusion of the Star Bright. Shimmers did not make up 28% of the calendar this year. Standards did. The various categories of shimmer made up an entire 2/3 of the set. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a magpie as much as the next person. I like shimmer. But I think that's maybe too many. To circle back to the sheen pin we put up a moment ago, what else is noticeable about 2021 is that this was the last year that there were any inks marked as only sheen. And 2022 was the last year we saw any labeled as sheen at all. But by that point, they were all sheen and shimmer or sheen and chameleon. As for this year, some of the inks showed a halo on the blob swatch that suggested sheen, but not to the effect that we've seen in previous years. And the only ink that showed appreciable sheen in writing samples that I noticed was Raise a Glass on the 25th. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of sheen because I always seem to make a huge mess with it. It gets smeared all over the paper, it ends up on my hands, but I still miss them being included in the calendar. I like having variety when I'm opening the doors, which is probably why I was excited for, and in retrospect, deeply disappointed by Glacier, the single Starbright ink this year. With only one ink to use as an example for these, it's really not clear what sets Starbright apart from regular shimmer. And also, Blizzard was a near dupe for it, and it was only a week later. As far as I can tell, it just had slightly bigger shimmer particles, which, for the record, sheds off the paper like really shiny dandruff, like way more than any other shimmer ink I've used. Sure, all of my shimmery blob swatches shed like crazy, but in writing, even the shimmers tend to behave better. Mostly. Now, there's one kind of ink that we haven't talked about yet, and that's partly due to my complicated opinions on them. Y'all, I liked spruce last year. I liked the smell, I liked the color. Pick Me Up was but I did not have the same problems with the scented inks that some people did. They didn't give me headaches. And this year, it was good to see that Diamine improved I'm going to call it the scent load of the scented inks from last year, but boy, are they badly behaved. I have never seen an ink feather on Tomoe River paper before, and both of the scented inks this year feathered, which I'll admit is kind of exciting to me for reasons. I won't say why yet, but I've been trying to find the most feathering non-polar bear's nose or whatever it's called for a project, and that's been surprisingly challenging. But now I have options. I may, against the odds, end up with an actual full bottle of one of these. Apart from how they behaved, I thought this was kind of the optimal number of scented inks to have in the calendar. I was glad to see both of them and glad there weren't any more, so good job, Diamine. I have no doubt that the overall calendar composition was determined based on the sales of past Inkvent inks. So this year suggests that Shimmers just dramatically outsell everything else. But that ends up making the calendar feel really lopsided. I hope that Diamine can find a good balance in the future between individual ink sales and making the calendar itself worth it for more people. But who knows? Maybe it's the last Inkvent calendar they'll release. I mean, I hope it's not, but maybe. So there are really 3 questions that I'm going to answer to sum up my overall opinion of this calendar. 1, did I think it was worth it? 2, would I recommend it to others? And 3, will I buy another Inkvent calendar? We're going to circle back around to whether I thought it was worth it or not, because the answer to that is tied into this whole experience of making videos every day. So straight on to would I recommend this to others? In short, it depends on their feelings about shimmer inks. If it weren't made up of 2/3 shimmer inks, so if it had the distribution of either the 2019 or the 2021 calendars, I think I could say without a doubt, yeah, it's a wonderful way to get a whole lot of variety without getting enormous bottles or teeny tiny samples. But if Diamine continues to put in so many shimmer inks, you really need to be on board with that or it's not going to bring you joy. It's as simple as that. Now, will I buy another Inkvent calendar? This gives away the answer to the first question, but yeah, I probably will. I find that Advent calendars in general are a really easy way for me to help December start to feel like Christmas, and I love sharing the joy of experiencing these inks with my friends and the people around me, which includes you now, dear viewer, so I hope I get a chance to share more inks with you. So, was it worth it? When I started this series, I had 2 total videos on my channel, and I was pretty sure the idea of fully filming and editing a video every day for nearly a month was such a bad idea. I thought they would be terrible. I thought I would probably quit halfway through. I thought I would get burnt out, but I did it anyway. And sure, a lot of them are awkward and a bit sloppy, and some came out later in the day than others. But at least from my perspective, the fact that I uploaded 25 videos every day with practically no experience in videography or video editing of any kind makes me really proud of myself. And it's not a feeling I have very often. And I have learned so much from this month about editing, planning, lighting, and especially about the shortcomings of my own that I will probably always need to account for. I learned that I prefer making videos with voiceovers, and that I'm terrible at following a script. It may be a product of my setup, but I like the way voiceovers sound more than videos with a lapel mic. And I have more flexibility with how to edit things, and just less seems to go wrong when I'm working that way. Though it is more intensive from an editing perspective. This month also helped me grow in ways I hope I can keep. Because I came into this with so little experience, I have noticed that I take sincere and specific constructive criticism so much less personally. I know I have no idea what I'm doing, and I want to make better videos. And in order to do that, I will need opinions on my videos other than my own. This is the first time in my life where taking criticism has come naturally, and that is something I want to inject into other areas of my life. And kind of miraculously, this drive for improvement hasn't come with a streak of perfectionism, which is how that effort usually manifests when I'm working on, my art. Instead, probably because of the quick turnaround that I've had to adhere to, I find myself being much more forgiving of my own mistakes. I still notice them. I don't think you can improve without seeing where you've made a mistake, but for the first several days, I had a mantra I would repeat while I was editing. Can I live with this? And if the answer was yes, I would continue with the video. I would leave the mistake alone. I wouldn't let myself edit anything out without answering that question. And after a couple days, I asked this less often, both because I became more comfortable with quick edits, but also because I was starting to accept that I would make mistakes, and that didn't mean that I wouldn't end up with something I was proud of. And I am proud of my Inkvent videos. I genuinely like the way that I set them up by comparing this year's inks to previous year's inks and making a game over what the next ink was going to be. I loved revisiting the inks from previous years, and it was really fun to see the ink from 2019 for the first time. Almost like a double Inkvent in a way. I don't know how I will change that historical comparison to carry it forward in a novel way next year, but I was happy to hear that others enjoyed it as much as I did. These videos, in a way, were a reminder to me that I don't want to just swatch the inks and move on. I want to actually use them. The whole point of this is for me to share them, and in the past I've done this by writing way more advent letters than is at all reasonable. I think last year I wrote something like 12 or 15. It was a lot. It was way too much. And when I started Inkvent this year, I cut back on the letters almost entirely since I was doing videos, and I was expecting that to be much more of a burden than it actually was. And what I found was that I missed writing the letters a lot. I don't know what the answer will be next year, but I hope I remember this. And whatever I decide, the number of letters will definitely have to be balanced against any videos I decide to make. I'm sure there's a middle ground in there somewhere. Now, not all of my videos did very well. Some got into a weird algorithm eddy and just took off, while others probably were only seen by my friends and one or two others. Now, I am someone who has always struggled to shrug off the way I think I am perceived by other people, whether they're strangers or not. I think this is probably due mostly to my particular flavor of executive dysfunction, which comes with some pretty stout rejection sensitivity. But about 10 days in, I realized, y'all, I didn't seem to care about the way that my videos were received or not received. I got positive feedback from the people whose opinion I valued, and I didn't care what the algorithm thought about my videos. I didn't care if it showed it to nobody. This is partly due to the fact that I have zero illusions about some meteoric rise to YouTube stardom from making Inkvent videos, but what the bulk of it really was, I'm still not sure. All I know is that for whatever reason, simply making the videos was enough. And that was the goal. So I think I'm going to keep doing this. Now, if I were an intelligent human being, I would make 2 videos a month, every other week. This feels like a reasonable, sustainable pace. But I had so much fun making a video every day that this feels like it feels less frequent than I want. And if I make a video every other week, except for Inkvent, well, this channel is never going to be anything but an Inkvent channel. Those videos will always outnumber all the rest. So for January and February at least, I'm going to try to release 1 video a week, probably on Sunday, and then see how I feel at the end of that period. I will probably not make an extra effort to have videos ready for when I'm traveling, so hopefully that will keep me somewhat grounded. So we'll start there. And I have so many ideas for what to do from here, and the more I work on those ideas, the more I have. And the funny part is, I am now 28 videos into this channel, and I haven't even started on the videos that motivated me to start this channel in the first place. I really want to use this channel as a vehicle for learning more about the science of fountain pens and ink and paper, and sharing that. I want to talk about art and how I interface with the art world and artists I love. I want to think really hard about weird little video games that just have love from their developers oozing from the seams. And I want to make gratuitous videos about spaceships a little bit. Or a lot of bit. I still want to do all of these things. And I would be so thrilled if you came with me. I think this is the point in the video where I ask you to like and subscribe. But really, what I want to see is if YouTube will do that rainbow swirly highlight of the subscribe button. I don't even know how I would check that. The button doesn't show up when I'm watching my own video. That's a future me problem. I'll figure it out. Apart from that, I hope that you enjoyed me dissecting this project that I worked on over the course of December. I hope everyone has a wonderful new year. May your ink flow smoothly when your pen meets the paper, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.